Namaste, everyone. Michele Granberg here. Welcome to another episode of Positive Energy, promoting a world of empathy and compassion for all animals and humans. Puppy mills are large-scale commercial breeding facilities that maximize profits at the expense of the animal's well-being. Puppy mills are cruel, and sadly, they are widespread throughout the U.S. On this show, I'm joined by Brian Hackett from Animal Legal Defense Fund to discuss recent efforts to ban the sale of puppies, kittens, and bunnies in retail stores. Stay where you are, because Positive Energy starts right now. So, hey, Brian, welcome to the show. So nice to have you back.
So glad to be here. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Happy New Year to you, too. So we're going to talk about advocating for animals again and saving them. So let's start off talking about puppy mills in general and then talk about the Puppy Mill Pipeline Act. So for audience who may not know, like, what are puppy mills? Why are they cruel? And what happens inside of them?
So puppy mills are large-scale breeding operations where there's little regard for the care or welfare of the puppies and the mom dogs that are being bred. These puppy mills often supply retail pet store outlets in various states around the country, which is why we encourage consumers to adopt and don't shop. If you go into a pet store where there are puppies or kittens or rabbits for sale, chances are they've come from a puppy mill or kitten mill or a rabbit mill. These large-scale breeding operations that just are egregious, they're problematic, there's not very good oversight from the federal government, and therefore we're seeing states and local city jurisdictions step in to prohibit the retail sale of cats, dogs, and rabbits to try to protect consumers and animals from these issues.
Is there any way that people can tell, when they go to a store? I mean, if they ask the employees there, do they have to sort of, well, I guess they all come from the same sort of pipeline, is what you're saying.
Yeah, it depends on the state. In New Jersey, we have what's called the Pet Purchase Protection Act, and one component of that law is that pet stores are required to disclose a bit of information about the source of the puppy. Right. But it really is state by state. What is a safe assumption to make is that if you are not going to directly to a reputable breeder, right, and you're not going to a reputable animal shelter or animal rescue organization, if you're in a retail pet store, you are probably purchasing a puppy mill animal. And that purchase, you are helping perpetuate
You're putting money
animal
in the hands,
yes,
of. So pets are still considered property.
Unfortunately.
Right? Unfortunately, and that's why these are allowed. Because you said there's not very many standards that govern these puppy mills.
Well, and I mean, that actually leads to, an overall mission that we have at the Animal Legal Defense Fund is trying to elevate the legal status of animals in our legal system in the United States. Unfortunately, as you note, animals are legally considered property. I think most people are appalled when they hear that their beloved cat or dog or other pet is legally really not much different than the shovel in their garage or the wheelbarrow in their shed from a legal standpoint.
Right, someone can steal and it's your property, yeah. And
so
you can do whatever you want basically with your property.
But the fact that there are basically in all 50 states now, there's some type of animal cruelty law, is just recognition that legally animals are more than property and should be considered legally more than property, but there's a lot of work to do.
There's a lot of work to do there. That's why we're here today. Where are most of these puppy mills located, or where, because they're sort of hidden. Like, people don't know they exist. They don't see them. They're not public, obviously. Are there many, many in New York and New Jersey, more than other parts of the country, or not, or do you know?
So generally, the actual puppy mills themselves, and again, generally speaking, a lot of places in the Midwest, southern states, Iowa is notorious for puppy mills, but believe it or not, Pennsylvania is also notorious for puppy mills.
Does it tend to be more rural areas?
Generally, yeah.
Maybe?
Really, a lot of these entities, I mean, there's an estimates that there are about 10,000 puppy mills in the United States, but believe it or not, a very small number of those are actually regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But even those regulated by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, it's not a seal of approval. It's not a seal of safety.
Until there's an issue, nobody's going out to the facilities.
Even when there's an issue, there's not proper enforcement. There's not always follow-up. What we have even seen in egregious instances is when there are actually citations leveled by the USDA on the federal level for violations of the Animal Welfare Act, it's only for the most egregious violations. And then sometimes these entities just transfer the license to somebody else, and nothing actually physically or realistically changes.
Why are they looking the other way? I mean, it's just too much for them to handle, or they don't care, or it's a corrupt system? I mean,
I think a significant portion of it is the fact that it's just there is too much to inspect, there's too much to enforce, and there's just too little resources and staff to adequately cover it. The USDA inspects research labs, puppy mills, so they have such a massive array of entities nationally that's under their purview. It's difficult. These puppy mills, a lot of these violations often fall through the cracks.
So it goes down to, we need to energize that system and put more money into it and put more manpower into it and take it more seriously. So we want to talk about solving it, or what we can do at this point, which is what you're trying to do. But before we talk about the bill, why it's important for people to adopt from shelters versus shopping from pet stores? And then people always ask me, well, I got my dog from a reputable breeder. Like you were saying, what about a reputable breeder? Is that good, bad, in between? Is that okay? Is that helping? Or that's just furthering the problem?
Well, the worst thing to do is to purchase an animal from a pet store because of the puppy mill pipeline to pet store problem that we've pointed out. I think the ideal scenario for folks is to look at any number of reputable shelters and rescue organizations in their own town, county, state, where there are some wonderful homeless animals that would make great pets that need homes. From a consumer protection and education standpoint, responsible breeders differ from puppy mills, because what puppy mills do that are mass breeding animals is they just ship these animals to a pet store. It's a third party selling them, to unsuspecting consumers, whereas a responsible breeder, the business model is at least much better, where a responsible breeder wants to meet the person face to face and make sure you're a right fit for the puppy the same way the puppy could be a right fit.
They should be vetting us as much as we're checking them out.
And responsible breeders do just that. So while we encourage and we promote the ideal of helping animals in shelters and rescues, a responsible breeder is a business model that is accounted for in state laws that we support, such as the New York puppy mill pipeline ban that Governor Hochul just signed into law in New York just last month. And that is a groundbreaking law. New York becomes the fourth state following California, Maryland, and Illinois to ban the retail sale of cats, dogs, and rabbits in these establishments. It's that puppy mill to pet store pipeline that we need to address.
Well, so that's a win for the animals, and in terms of that, and just reminding people to adopt, don't shop, the shelters are overflowing, and they always say when you adopt from a shelter, you save 2 lives. Because you save that animal's lives, plus you make room, a spot for that next animal that needs to come in.
Right.
So this Puppy Mill Pipeline Act that was passed last month, was it?
Yes.
It's stopping that. What does it mean? Can we measure it now? Like, how does that look now? Like, are pet stores closing? What's your hope for the future with that? We want all states to adopt that, of course, something.
So it's not yet enacted. There's a period of time to allow pet shops to convert to a more responsible, humane business model, which is what most pet retailers already do. If you look at the 24 out of the 25 largest pet retailers in the United States, 24 out of 25 do not sell cats, dogs, or rabbits. So the business trends are already moving in that direction. So this is just trying to encourage and jumpstart the existing pet stores that are irresponsibly sourcing from puppy mills to transition to that more acceptable, more humane business model. So there really should be no reason for them to close. Hundreds, if not thousands, of pet shops have success with a more humane model.
Well, and I would think, what do I know, that you can make a living on the small and the big ones on just pet supplies. Anyway, pets are billions of pets across, right? So
the industry data supports what you just said.
Yeah.
The industry data, if you look at all the categories of the pet industry, the one that is the smallest and makes the least revenue is the live pet sales category.
Yeah, that shows a shift in awareness.
Right.
You know, and so I would say the public perception or the public prefer at this point, you know, not to have pets that are sold in pet stores, and therefore shelters and adopting more than not.
The unfortunate reality, though, is that there are still pet stores that exist. In New Jersey, there are 17 that source from puppy mills. And so, unfortunately, these businesses are able to stay open because there still is some market demand for it. And it's largely folks who are unsuspecting consumers who are not yet aware of the fact of all the steps that it takes for that puppy to get to the window when they walk in. And when people are aware and educated about that, they don't go to pet stores.
And it's more, you're saying, the mom pop smaller?
Typically,
than the big chains.
Typically. Like Petco and PetSmart don't sell puppies.
Yeah, I haven't seen that.
Right.
They more so advocate for adopting. And
right. They partner with
rescues. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, let's thank you for that. Let's transition. Let's go to the next sort of topic around animals, which is the cosmetic testing on animals that has always been done, but recently laws have changed, and I know that you're not directly involved, or ADLF is not directly involved with the new legislation, but could you just comment on that? Basically, the U.S. law has eliminated the requirement that drugs in development must undergo testing on animals before being given to humans, participants in human trials.
Right.
We've been pushing for this. Animal advocates have been pushing for this because there's no efficacy. The efficacy is lower even than what you would think.
So ALDF did support that federal law, the FDA Modernization Act. I personally worked on a New York law that also just was signed into law, which is in the same category.
Right.
The New York law would prohibit the manufacture and sale of cosmetics that were tested on animals. So to your point, we're supportive of these laws, whether on a state or national level, that move away from using animals for these types of testing because it's not necessary. There are so many alternatives that are viable, that are credible, that work. We don't need to be testing on animals in these inhumane ways anymore.
It's a little apples and oranges. Beyond the ethics of it, it's not even effective.
Right.
But can you give a glimpse into what animal testing is, like what that looks like for the animals inside, what happens to the animals behind closed doors, that we really want to stress that for people? Because again, we're blind to it. Unless there's a whistleblower, someone on the inside taking this footage, people are largely unaware that it happens.
The horrors of animal testing, your viewers just need to just Google it.
Just Google it.
Rabbits' eyes are cosmetics or other shampoos are put in their eyes to test that. Beagles, toxicity testing on these poor beagles, where they're just gassed or to see how they react to certain substances. Across the board, whether it's dogs, rabbits, mice, monkeys is pretty atrocious. So we really need to move away from this, whether it's for cosmetics or toxicity or any other type of testing. There's so many technological advances with human cells that actually are more accurate to be testing on lab-grown human cells instead of a live animal that is different from a human in so many ways. So we definitely need to move away from it.
Absolutely do. Do you know how people can tell if a product is cruelty-free?
Well, at least on cosmetics, look for that bunny, the cruelty-free symbol on there. People can directly contact a company directly and ask. There are also animal protection organizations that publish, cruelty-free listings in the market. So just be educated, do your searching, and don't support. You can vote with your dollars. And that's very important. How people vote with their dollars in what type of food they buy, what type of products they buy, that's very important in helping animals.
Consumers have the power because the bottom line is the dollar for these companies, for these businesses. So let's talk now about farm animals in general and the cruel farm animal confinement bill, which you and I have talked about, unfortunately, in the past, and here we are again, but it's coming up for a vote on the Senate floor. There is an estimated 9 billion land animals raised and killed for food every year in the U.S. These animals are subjected to near unimaginable cruelty, much of which is perfectly legal under the current law. So we want to remind people it's not illegal to treat farm animals cruelly.
Yeah, it's really devastating. In New Jersey, we have Senate Bill 1298 that you referenced, which would prohibit the cruel confinement of mother pigs and veal calves. We're in our 13th year of working on this legislation, and it's not for lack of trying, just political circumstances. It's been a roller coaster. History, years back, Governor Christie vetoed this bill after it had passed overwhelmingly twice in the legislature, and now fast forward to here. We've worked out a really good piece of legislation that even has the support of the New Jersey Farm Bureau now this year. So we really commend the effort there and want any of your viewers to contact their state legislators to say to support S 1298. And we are hoping for a Senate vote soon.
Okay, thanks for that call to action. So people can actually call now and just voice that.
Absolutely.
So, anything else you want to say about the standard practices in the animal agriculture industry that way? And, what will it change? What will this bill change specifically if it goes through? And the difference between animal welfare and animal abolitionism, animal liberation.
Wow, that's a lot for just a few minutes, Michelle.
Okay, maybe not.
Well, let's try to touch upon all of it. So, in New Jersey, we want to increase the standards for how the animals are kept at the bare minimum. That's the least we can do. We don't really have what we call CAFOs in New Jersey, the way that we see them in North Carolina or Iowa. A CAFO is a concentrated animal feeding operation. These are massive, large-scale operations with hundreds, sometimes thousands of animals crammed in close, tight quarters. They're dousing them with antibiotics because they're getting sick all the time because they're so closely confined. It's pretty disgusting. So what S 1298 would do is at least say that we don't want to hold and keep animals in these derogatory conditions. So that's a bare minimum standard.
Right. Can you quickly say the difference between animal welfare versus animal liberation or abolitionism?
Yeah, look, there are multiple approaches to how we try to reduce and eliminate animal suffering.
They both have value.
Yes, and I think animal protectionism, animal welfare is an approach that says, let's look at how we can make as much incremental progress at this time that we can to reduce as much suffering as we can for animals. Personally, I'm a vegan. I would love to see people go plant-based tomorrow, but the reality is that that's not going to happen. So we just have to do as much as we can through the legislative process, through the education and awareness process to just raise people's education on these things.
Until we get to that vegan world, sort of, but we have to go for those more winnable, achievable goals.
Right.
So let's go from there to the bear hunt. So New Jersey Governor Murphy banned, then reinstituted, recently the bear hunt. So it's back on in 2023.
Went back on his incessant promises to not allow.
That's right. So what happened, and where do we go from here, and why do we need a bear hunt?
Absolutely not.
No,
so last December, interestingly, very, very quickly, right after the midterm elections, the governor declared what we consider a sham emergency, where he felt it was justified there needed to be a black bear hunt this past December. The fact of the matter is the state of New Jersey has done nothing it should have been doing over the years, and it could easily be doing now, to prevent human-bear conflicts. A couple of these things involve broad public education, proper enforcement of trash management procedures. None of that stuff is really happening. So
they set it up to fail, basically.
Precisely. So when they haven't done anything they were supposed to do, and then conveniently after an election, when the votes have already been cast and now we can move on, this sham emergency was declared.
I voted for him with that in the back of my mind, with the bear hunt in my mind, like literally, I'm one of those voters.
Yes, many, many people, Democrats, even Republicans, supported the governor over his policy promise to not allow a lethal black bear hunt, and then to betray that promise. It's very disappointing. Very disappointing. And the fact that the bear numbers that they killed last December were so low just shows that the science was flawed, if you could even call it science, that the State Division used. And they overestimated the number of bears to try to hype up this sham emergency that they say they needed.
So what do we do? Where do we go from here? And what's the call to action on that?
Well, what New Jersey should do is do what many other bear-heavy states have done, which is proactive, comprehensive wildlife management approaches to black bears that actually have worked. Colorado and Boulder, in Yellowstone National Park, bear complaints went down 90%. The science and the approaches have already been proven in other states. New Jersey just have to have the wherewithal to do it, and that's what we're promoting. So folks should continue to call the governor's office and express opposition to a lethal black bear policy. Also, up until February 3rd, people can submit comments online against the current proposed so-called comprehensive black bear management plan, which people should do. Submit a comment in opposition because it allows a lethal hunt. Okay.
We're going to have to put that phone number up so people can do that. I know you wanted to mention sort of quickly the cost of care bill. Can you talk about that?
So A2354 is a very important bill. This would establish a process to determine who's responsible for paying for the costs of animals lawfully seized during an animal cruelty case. Right now, New Jersey is one of 11 states that does not have one of these laws on the books. It's outrageous we don't have one of these. So what results in happening is that the taxpayers and private animal shelters and rescues are on the hook for paying for the cost of care from, for animals taken from an alleged abuser's situation.
They're not the ones who should be paying for that.
If those animals are the property of that person, well, then they should be responsible for paying for it. So we desperately need that law. It's passed the New Jersey State Senate unanimously. Now it's up to Assemblyman Roy Fryman of the 16th District, who's the chair of the Assembly Agriculture Committee, to put it up for a hearing in committee. So your viewers should politely call Assemblyman Fryman's office and ask him to post the bill.
All right, we want to ask people to do that. That's the call to action for that particular bill.
Yes.
So there's so much to talk about and so much to do, so much work to do. And you're doing what you can do through the Animal Legal Defense Fund. Can you just say what is the Animal Legal Defense Fund? How did that start? And what is your role as Legislative Affairs Manager?
So ALDF is the leading animal advocacy organization, legal animal advocacy organization, looking to elevate the status of animals in our legal system. So we discussed a lot about this problem of their designation as property. We're looking to change that through a variety of methods, approaching it from the legislative process, our litigation program, our criminal justice program, making sure the laws are appropriately enforced. We're really a dynamic organization that are utilizing these approaches to better the lives of animals, reduce suffering, and elevate their status in the legal system. So in my role within our legislative affairs program, I'm working to help defeat bad laws that would hurt animals. I'm working to advance good legislation that would help them in the states that I cover, and just looking to raise awareness. So that's why it's great to be here today.
Yeah, so, thank you for your tireless work there. And I mean, that's sort of all we have time for today, but can you share, again, sort of a final message that you have and any other call to action? Yeah,
definitely. Your viewers, to get more information about some of the things we've discussed today, as well as the rest of our other work, go to aldf.org. Can find out all about our campaigns to help farm animals, to help wild animals, to help companion animals, and to elevate their status in our legal system.
Yeah. And Brian, just tell everyone to go vegan.
Hey, I'm vegan. Go vegan.
That's right. Vegan, everyone. Thank you, Brian. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Really glad to have you.
Thank you.
We're wrapping up another enlightening show. Want to help animals? One thing you can absolutely do right now is go vegan. Being vegan is not about being perfect. It is about doing the least harm and the most good for animals. From the animal's point of view, it's urgent. So I urge you to start today. Thank you for watching. Check out MicheleGranberg.com and join me next time on Positive Energy.